Ladies, gentlemen, ladyboys. When I was 15, a job counselor was sent to our classroom to teach us how important it is to have good grades and a linear CV. To be an employable person, he said, you have to be consistent in your decisions and you have to watch out that you have no gaps in your CV. And we were just coming back smoking our first cigarettes from behind the gym and listening to Guns N' Roses. And I was like, an employable person? Now the funny thing is that in German, the word he used was einstellbar. And if you look that up in the dictionary, einstellbar means adjustable. And I was thinking, what kind of word is that? Machines you can adjust so they do what you want them to do, but people? But this guy was he was convinced to make us believe that we should make decisions in order to become a more adjustable person. By the way, how many of you here have gaps in their CV? You're all non-adjustable people, eh? Authorities like the job counselor who try to program or to condition us come in all shapes and forms. Might start with your parents if you're unlucky. It's in school, it's the ads on the wall, it's commercials on TV. And they all have one thing in common, which is to make us accept pre-made answers, to live by other people's beliefs and experiences. Now the problem with that is that when you run this operating system, which runs on pre-made answers, when you're in an unfamiliar situation, you sometimes respond with fear or negative emotions in general, like rejection. And in a complex, rapidly changing world, I wonder if this is a good operating system. Just think about this, 2/3 of children entering school this year will work in jobs that have not been even invented yet as we are here today. So I'm asking myself, is this a good operating system? Please keep this question in mind while I take you to Ocho Rios, Jamaica. This is a picture of Dunn's River Falls in Ocho Rios, Jamaica. It's a beautiful 180-meter long cascading waterfall. Now picture yourself at the bottom of this waterfall and think about how would you go up. Would you keep your eyes at the top and go up in a straight line? Or would you go to the left and to the right to explore the various treasures that might be hidden there for you, like the lagoons and the butterflies? Long story short, I was in Jamaica and I arrived at this waterfall early in the morning before the tourist buses arrived. And apparently I needed a ticket to get into the waterfall area. So the lady at the ticket counter was like, "Where's your guide?" It's like, a guide? Do I need a guide to get into the waterfall? No, you don't need to, but when the groups arrive, then better stick to one of the groups. So I entered the waterfall and the groups arrived and they were separated in smaller groups of 10 and they all had their Rastafarian guides assigned. And at one point I was sitting there on a bench and all these different groups were standing around their Rasta guide and the Rasta guide went like, "Yeah man, here we're in Jamaica and as you know we always say yeah man." So I go like 1, 2, 3 and you all go yeah man. And it was surreal because there was all these different groups who were surrounding their Rasta guide and asynchronously shouting Yaman. And it reminded me of a military boot camp. Then they were led along this path, which got tighter and tighter. And there was a small shop where they were told to rent rubber shoes for $10 so they wouldn't slip when they walk up this waterfall. And everybody rented it. Now I found another path and did not rent those rubber shoes, and I went to the bottom of the waterfall and enjoyed the view. The people arrived and were instructed by their Rastafarian guides to hold each other's hands and then take these small baby steps to walk up this waterfall. And I thought, nah, I can't do that. I took off my shoes, I put them in a backpack, and I was standing there, and I remember I was pretty scared because there was quite some current. And I was a bit shaky on my legs. But after a while, I felt the water flowing and through my toes, and I kind of connected to the waterfall. I sort of felt it, and I became the waterfall. And then I went a bit to the left and to the right. I used my hands and feet to navigate around the waterfall, and I walked up. I used these giant tree roots sometimes to swing from one stone to another. And after 30 minutes, I arrived at the top. And when I was there, I thought, I might have taken a slightly more riskier route and a more unpredictable route, but I have seen so much more than the people walking there in line. Right? I went far away from the line and I saw these giant butterflies which were afraid to fly where the line of the people were. I saw these lagoons and even found a small tree frog. So I saw the waterfall this way. By the way, I had an amazing time in Jamaica. At the top of the waterfall, I met this Rasta guy and we rented a car together. This is Ernie, my Rasta friend, and we went once around the island. This is Captain Crazy, we hang out with him, he's the tour guide of the Bob Marley Museum. And then after a couple of days I said, drop me off at that corner. It was my second last day. And I met this guy, he wanted to rob me first, but I convinced him that we should instead make a reggae song together. And it ended up on Irie FM on Kingston radio. And the t-shirt was not my choice. They made me buy this before we recorded the song. I believe that from early childhood on, we get programmed and conditioned to follow instructions. And let's call this approach the dogmatic approach, right? If you follow this approach, OS dogma, you basically live with the results of other people's thinking. And when you find yourself in an unfamiliar situation, like walking up a waterfall, you might respond with negative emotions like fear. Now there's another approach, and I call it the self-discovery approach. And if you run OS self-discovery, then you follow your inner voice, heart, and intuition. It's the approach of the traveler who discovers places on his own. It's not being afraid of the unknown, but instead embracing the unknown and the feeling that the world in general is a safe place. And my point is that in a world rapidly changing like ours, where answers are updated much faster than you can actually print them in a book, this self-discovery approach might be a better operating system to go with. And I don't know if from early childhood I was inclined to follow this way, but what really got me there was traveling and living in different places. So let me tell you this story. And since life is not linear anymore, I just start with a random one. This is exactly 1 year ago. We were running our company, my business partner and me, from this Land Rover Defender, which you can see here is pretty badly stuck in the sand. This is my business partner Dominic. He's responsible for project management and really good at it, but he's also really good at always needing a bathroom. And when he goes for a pee in the desert, here we are stuck in the Peruvian desert, then he's also really good at finding bones, which Vin, responsible for logistics, driving, and our last project, Startup Diaries, then sticks into his hair. And he was wearing this, this bone for several months in a row. And when people asked him, is this from a person? He said, yes, it's from my ex-girlfriend. And they were like, did she die? No, I ate her. He even said that on TV once. So our mobile office was totally stuck in the sand, and we were in an absolute hurry. We had 2 hours left to make it to some place with an internet connection, because we had a go-live call with a customer, an online casino in Las Vegas, and they had paid us $15,000 to develop an app. And this was the critical moment where they would switch from an old app to the new app that we developed on a running system, so it was very critical. We first tried digging, but that didn't really work, but we found out we have this cable winch, which then we used, there was sparks coming out of it, and we were lucky that there was some sort of tree trunk in the middle of the desert, and then we actually made it and got out of the sand, and we raced on the desert streets. We had an engine overheating problem, but then we actually made it. And we found 2 neighboring internet cafes, and this is Dominic in one of them. There's all these kids playing Counter-Strike and listening to reggaeton. And we split up. I went to the other cyber coffee because we didn't want to use the whole bandwidth. And there was also kids playing Counter-Strike at full volume. So every time we were not speaking to the client, we were anxiously hitting the mute button so the customer would not be irritated by the sounds of war and machine guns. And after 15 minutes, everything was over, and it actually worked. We just made 15K from this desert cyber coffee in the middle of nothing in South Peru near the Nazca lines. And while I was sitting there, and while I was clicking hang up, on GoToMeeting, I had this mental movie inside of my mind going on. I was kind of following the Wi-Fi signal to the satellite. So I was zooming out more and more, seeing us sitting there, 3 smelly guys who haven't had a shower for 3 months in a row. I shouldn't be that honest. For 4 days in a row, wearing flip-flops with the bones of our ex-girlfriends in our hairs. Just finished the call, and I zoomed out more, and I saw our Land Rover parked outside. And here, astonished, I'm looking to the right because there were chicken running around in the cyber coffee. And I zoomed out more and I saw the place at the Pacific Ocean where we woke up that morning. This is a flexible roof where you can sleep with 2 people in the upper part and Vin is sleeping down there. And I zoomed out more and I saw the Nazca lines, and then I rotated the planet a little bit and I saw Las Vegas. And mentally I flew into the office of the customer, past the receptionist, and I saw 2 guys and a woman in suit and tie with a conference microphone on the table, and they had just spoken to us. And then I zoomed out full scale and I saw what Carl Sagan once called the pale blue dot. And mentally I went through situations like finishing a data migration on Wi-Fi in an airplane, descending in Jamaica, or driving the Land Rover down from Berlin to Morocco and doing calls in cornfields in France using a Bluetooth headset with a laptop on the Land Rover and a gas cooking stove next to the Land Rover, boiling my eggs while talking to a customer in San Francisco. And there I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And then I zoomed into the town where I'm from, Detmold. A small town in Germany, so small that even Germans don't know it exists sometimes. And there I saw him sitting, the job counselor. And I went, I'm sorry, dude, but your advice really needs an update, man. Everybody is a genius, Einstein once said, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will believe its whole life that it's really stupid. The system that sends the job counselor into our classrooms to get us walking in line does not care really about our individuality. It does not put us on a path to discover who we really are, or what is meaningful for us, or what creates these flow experiences, or what fulfills us. It is just designed to send us up the waterfall, a straight path. And often this path looks like a predictable and linear, boring career. It's designed to prop up our retirement plans, the minivan industry, and sends us on an Alaskan cruise ship with our color-coded pillbox when we're 67 and too old to spend our money on everything else than big pharma cruises and our grandkids. We're born as fishes, and then we're told, go climb that tree. Some of them are lucky, they're monkeys. Works for them. Some of them are lucky too, they're born as fishes in the ocean. But I'm talking to those who are born as fishes, and then somebody goes like, climb up that fucking tree. Oh, you don't have arms and legs? Well, practice, take some more Ritalin. Come on. The technology and the internet have changed our whole lives. Now we don't have to go hunting on the fields anymore. Now we can sit all day in front of a computer. Technology used properly, though, allows us to live a freer life and to walk up that waterfall however we like to. It means we can do what we probably in this room all want to do, or all are already doing, which means go traveling and discovering the world while making a living in a way that the job counselor or our parents never could have had imagined. And on the surface, it means we don't have to do the brush, rinse, repeat, sitting for an hour, looking at a small screen in the morning, and then looking at a medium-sized screen for 8 hours, and then going home and looking at a really big screen for 3 hours. And on a much deeper level, it means we can open our eyes and open our minds and breathe in and let life in. Now, a lot has happened between being confronted with a job counselor and being stuck in the sand about a year ago. So I condensed all this in 4 stories. The first story is about free fish, salmon to be precise. Let's call this fish Smokey. It was in 2006. I was studying at the Technical University in Berlin, but I had no idea how I could use anything that I learned to make a living. But I had a funny friend at that time, and he had a strange hobby. He used an old fake press ID card to sneak into exclusive conferences, to network and meet people, but to be honest, to eat for free. And one day he called me and was like, "Hey Fabian, you have to come to the Hyatt Hotel. There's a Ruby on Rails conference and the buffet is soon starting. It looks really good." I was like, "Ruby on what?" But free food sounded really good. So an hour later I was standing there shoveling these heaps of free salmon onto my plate, and next to me there was a headhunter standing. He had paid $1,000 to be in the conference, and he asked me if I had some experience with Ruby on Rails. And I said, "Yeah, I have some experience," which was true, not. And he offered me a job, which I would do like 2 days per week while studying, and I accepted. So then I went home, learned some Ruby on Rails, and then I kept learning Ruby on Rails while I was working in this company. And this got me on the path of becoming a Ruby on Rails developer. Now, 4 years later, I'm in Berlin, Schlesische Straße, working for an NGO called Better Place. July, full summer, 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and I'm done for the day. I walk out of the office, and there's this long-haired guy sitting on the street playing this backpacker guitar. And it was exactly the guitar that I wanted to buy at the time. So I asked him if I could try it. And Javier said yes. So I played the guitar, and while I did that, he told me this amazing story. Javier had a painting business in Barcelona, and one night at the beach he met a woman, madly fell in love with her, and she was on the way to Africa in an old Mercedes. So the next day Javier got home, got his passport, told his parents that they can sell everything he has, and he embarked on this journey from Spain to Mali. Now, when they arrived in Mali, they lived there for a couple of months, and when they ran out of money, they sold the Mercedes for 3 times the price they had bought it for, and then went back to Barcelona just for a couple of days, got a new Mercedes, and like that they spent 4 years in Africa. So I was like, isn't that a bit dangerous, driving old cars through Africa? And he said, "No, man, not tío." And then he taught me everything that I needed to know, and it totally took away my fear. So I thought, man, I want to do the same. This sounds so good. I want to drive through Africa. But I had a problem. I had no money. Now, a week later, I discovered this video contest from Ford. You could win $10,000. The Ford Focus, the new one, which parks on its own for 6 weeks, and a weekend on the racetrack in Madrid. So I made a video, and I did win. And a couple of weeks later, I was kicking these giant footballs into over-dimensional goals on a racetrack in Madrid. Now, at the same time, I had this thing going on. Better Place, this NGO I was working for, just released this new feature. It was called fundraising events. So people would come up with all these crazy bets to raise money for some charitable cause. And my project was called Singing for Change. So it meant everybody who donated could wish a song, and then I had to play it and sing it and make a video for evidence. It was really fun because I did like Can't Get You Out of My Head in Morocco, and Don't Worry, Be Happy on Berlin Alexanderplatz, and I Will Survive it on the roof of Mercedes-Benz. And I thought, man, it would be so cool if I could drive a car through Africa and continue doing Singing for Change. And now I had the 10K. Now before I go on, let's take a step back and actually look at what happened there, right? So the job that I got because of Smokey the Fish, the long-haired Javier sitting on the street who made me drive to Africa. Some people might call this luck or destiny or the law of attraction or whatever, but I think it's serendipity. And I think that serendipity is a skill and not destiny. I think that you can actually train your brain to be more open, to filter out these experiences that you like to experience from the external world. Think of your brain like a goal-achieving machine, like a pattern-fulfilling mechanism. If you train your brain to be on the outlook for these things that you want to experience, then it does this for you on autopilot. And then whenever it shows you something, then you just have to go for it. Richard Wiseman, the psychologist, did a cool experiment which showcases what I mean. He took 100 people who said, we're always lucky, or we used to be lucky. And then he took 100 people who said, we're never lucky. And he gave him a task. The task consisted in going through a newspaper and counting the amount of pictures. They were not supposed to read any text, just count the pictures. Now secretly, Richard Wiseman had placed a message somewhere in the newspaper which said, stop counting, there are 43 pictures, tell the experimenter you have seen this and win $250. Now the people who said they're always lucky, significantly more went to the experimenter and said, give me the 250. The people who said we're never lucky never reported that. Not because they read it and didn't report it, because they have not read it. So to me that shows that luck is probably not an external thing. It's something you can learn. Maybe it's reading between the lines, maybe it's looking left and right, maybe it's doing things that you're not really supposed to, but it's not luck. It's a skill you can train, and I think traveling is a great school to learn this skill. Think of recording this video for Ford. When I made this video and I told other people about it, they were always like, no man, that's so much work, everybody makes a video, I won't win anyway. Now guess what happens if everybody thinks that way? Nobody participates. 400 people participated, 50 people won the $10,000. So it was a pretty high probability. And sometimes fishing is best where no one goes. And most importantly, always go for free food. I was hungry, got me a job. It's a win-win situation. So I had the money, and the second story starts. I started driving. Germany, France, Spain, and I took the ferry, and I entered Africa through the so-called gate to Africa, Tangier. And in Tangier I met someone called Monir. And for some reason I judged Monir. I labeled him as a thief for something that he told me. And in the afternoon we were sitting at this viewpoint, and in the background you can actually see Spain. That's Tarifa there. It's just 10 miles. Some people try to swim. And he said, here, many of us sit from early childhood on, and some of us dream of getting to the other side. And I actually made it once, and I stayed 8 years in Barcelona, and I still have a Spanish girlfriend there. But I wasn't lucky. I didn't get any visa, so they sent me back. And since then I had tried it many times, but they always sent me back. So I asked Monir, how did you get to Spain? And he said, I traveled to Spain by crawling underneath the truck and then placing myself on top of the petrol tank. A small mistake can kill you when you're up there. You're like the wheel. And when you make it to the other side, you have to be really motionless. Still, because you're so happy you made it, but there's 3 borders and the police controls with dogs. And if you really make it, and a whole new journey starts. You're hungry, you don't speak the language, you're illegal, but all I always just want is go to my girlfriend who's waiting for me in Barcelona. Now, after I heard that story, it was impossible to judge Monir anymore. There's a saying which says, there isn't anybody you cannot learn to empathize with when you hear their story. So I kept driving, went through Mauritania, Senegal, Gambia, and I ended up in a small town in Bakau, in Gambia. And I didn't know where to sleep, but in some bar I met Alaji. And I remember this scene where Alaji says, he let me live in a house attached to his house for 1 week. And he opened his gate and he said, Fabian, Alaji lived in Germany for 10 years and he had not really a good time, he told me. He couldn't really make any friends and he had dangerous situations he had to face because of being black. And he opened that gate and said, Fabian, this gate is open for you for the rest of your life. And just to see his reaction, I put this serious face on and I said, can I stay here for another year? And he said, this is no problem. You can stay here as long as you want. So I went on through Mali, Burkina Faso, and then to Ghana. Now up to this point, oh, here's some images from the trip. This is a normal road in Mali, and then here you can see some street market in Bamako. This is some giant snake skin. This is Lake Togo, which I crossed on a 1-tree boat. This is like a typical scene the street that connects Nigeria and Cameroon. And up to this point, I was stopped by the police for about 150 times until I made it to Ghana. They always stop you. And they're always looking for a bribe. And sometimes they put on this angry face and they come to your window and they ask you to, they try to find some problem, or they ask you to open the trunk. But I never paid a bribe and I never opened my trunk. The reason is, whenever the police stopped me, I was like, hey, nice to meet you. Do you know how I can get to Nigeria? Is this left or right? After Benin, I came here driving from Germany, and it's like, how did you cross the sea? It's like, there's a ferry. Oh, really? And then what did you do? So we had this conversation for 5 minutes. It was always the same. And then I didn't open my trunk anymore. We were friends. Now, one night in Ghana, I was walking around at the beach where you're not supposed to walk, and I had all my stuff in my hands because I was swimming before, and there was 3 guys in my way, and I walked around, and when I tried to cross them, they snatched everything I had out of my hand, and then quickly walked away to a place over there, and then searched through my things. The only thing I was wearing was a boxer shorts and this wooden chain I got from the Marabout people, which is some magic people in Gambia. So I very slowly walked up to them, and I was standing there, and the leader of the gang immediately put his hands around my neck and tried to unscrew this wooden chain. And I said, oh, please, no, it's from the Marabout people, it protects me against knife stabs. He said, okay, you can keep it. What are you doing here? Oh, I came driving from Germany. How did you cross the sea? So we had a conversation going on, and then they were really impressed, and they asked me all these details, and said, you made it until here, we will not stop you. You're a brave man, you have to understand we're desperate. Have a safe journey, brother, here's all your things. And I kept on driving. So, I continued doing Singing for Change. I had a bet going on, so I was raising money for different projects, and at one point in Gambia, they donated $1,200 for a project, and my bet was that for each $10 donated, I would find one person to sing with me. So 1,200 divided by 10 is 120. So here I had find 120 people, and the donors could choose the songs. Here they chose Waka Waka from Shakira, which I had to sing here, and it's actually a Cameroonian song, which I didn't know before. But let's take a step back and see what happened here. I think we as humans have the tendency to think of us and them, in-group and out-group, and in-group is basically everybody we care about, friends, family, extended family, sometimes country. And then there's them, which is everybody else, especially if they're very different to us or far away. And I think the great thing about traveling is that through meeting the strangers, on a personal level, like I met Monir, we are dissolving those boundaries and removing these barriers in our heads, and we come closer, we dissolve boundaries and include people in the inner circle of our empathy. And I think that's very healthy on a personal level, but also for the planet in general. What really helped me in those difficult situations when dealing with the highway police or with the gangsters was, I began to start seeing people in different layers, like an onion model. On the outer layer, you see the skin color, the police uniform, the clothes ripped from the gangsters. A layer more inside, you see the nationality, the freaky German traveler, the Nigerian robber, the policeman from Ghana. And then in the core, we're kind of all the same. We have the basic needs that we all share. And the funny thing is that in Africa, those layers are super fragile. It's like in the morning there's a lottery where somebody stands on a chair and it's like, hey, we need another policeman here. Who wants to be policeman today? Okay. Anybody wants to be a gangster? Okay, I'll do it. Who's the German traveler? Okay. So, but at the end of the day, everybody is just trying to achieve the same, which is getting home with some food or some money. And it doesn't really matter if you're the policeman or the gangster. So what helped me in those situations was to communicate from my core to the core of the policeman or the gangster, and not taking this role serious at all. So I was not talking German white guy to black gangster guy, but friend to friend. And I think that influences everything. It influences how you move, how you blink your eyes, how you look at people, Apply this philosophy, do some fist bumps in Jamaica, and it's no problem to walk around nearly anywhere. When I was in Morocco and I was driving to Mauritania, the Moroccans said, "Oh, you're going to Mauritania, you really have to watch out, they will throw stones at you, it's really dangerous there." Then I was in Mauritania, I said, "Oh, you're going to Gambia, it's really dangerous." And I went to Gambia and they said, "Oh, you just came from Mauritania, it's pretty dangerous there." "Oh no, you're going to Ghana, it's dangerous there." And I was in Ghana and they said, "Oh, you came from Gambia, it's dangerous." "Don't go to Nigeria, it's dangerous." Like everywhere it was dangerous, just not in the country where I was. But at the end, nothing really happened to me, you know? And I really love picking up hitchhikers. And once, only once in my whole life, a hitchhiker in Ghana stole my camera. But then if you think about it like a scale, and on one side you have the lost camera, on the other side you have all these amazing experiences, I would give all the cameras of the world to experience what I had experienced. So, I made it until Congo, and I was stuck in Congo because of this. Anybody knows what this means? Yes, it means I had malaria, and it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. While I was lying in bed, I was fortunate. I had Wi-Fi. And this Wi-Fi changed my life. It's really funny when you have malaria, you know, the mind plays tricks on you. Sometimes I would wake up in the bathroom without knowing why I was in the bathroom, or I would walk in circles and then became conscious, like, why am I walking in circles? You get really crazy. So I try to not lose my mind by Googling random things. I watched a bunch of cat videos and craziest world records. And then one day I typed in the coolest job of the world in the internet. I was not looking for a job. And a job offer from a company in San Francisco appeared. And they had an online application form, name, phone number, letter of motivation, upload your CV. And I didn't want the job, so I put Fabian and my Congolese phone number. And the next day they called me. And I had no idea what I had applied for, so I quickly went on their website, zendesk.com. Okay, something with customer service, all right. And then I improvised because I wanted to see how far I can take it. And it really sounded like the coolest job of the world. The next day I had another interview with the CEO of the London office, and he said, "So, what was your biggest professional challenge?" It's like, "Well, you know, if that counts, driving an old Mercedes through Nigeria." I said, "Well, you're applying for a sales job, but you never did this. You have a sales weakness. How do you explain that?" "Well, you know, I just bought a car for 1,000 in Germany and I sold it in Congo for 3,000. Do you call that a sales weakness?" I didn't care about the job. They hired me. And that really scared the shit out of me because I thought I'm this guy, this lonesome, adventurous traveler freak, and now I had to go to the real startup world in London where I would work with people who probably followed the advice of the job counselor, right? So it's my second day at Zendesk. This is not my second day, it's just one random picture. And I'm in a cab with James. And we're in one of these black London cabs where you can see each other. And James goes like, he's from the sales team, "So Fabian, what did you do before you came to Zendesk?" And I said, "Well, you know, I drove a car from Germany to Congo." He said, "That sounds pretty uncomfortable, mate. Why would you do that?" Awkward silence. And then we got closer to the client. It was a really important client. And I was like, "You know, James, it's my second day here at Zendesk. I don't really know what the company is doing. What am I supposed to do in this meeting?" "Oh, you know, I'm the sales guy. I don't know any of this tech stuff. So whenever there's a tech question, you answer it." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's my second day." "Oh, no worry, mate. Whenever you don't know the answer, you just say, 'With a little bit of tweaking, we can do it.'" So I said that. And then I went back to the office and figured out how to do what we had promised. And I did that every day. From a call, you know, "Oh, how do I do this?" Went to the weekend with a little bit of tweaking and do it. And then I figured out how to do it. And after months, I woke up in the morning and I was the technical expert. I had an amazing time at Zendesk. I worked 80 to 100 hours a week. I worked always. I loved it. My colleagues were awesome. I was super motivated and there was free food. But at one point I thought something has to change. I was working and not living. It was a work style, not a lifestyle. And I generated all my satisfaction with the positive feedback that we got from the clients or from the co-workers. So I prepared a slide deck for my boss, and these are the 2 original slides from the slide deck. I said, "Boss, my time at Zendesk was amazing. I had purpose, I had autonomy, I was always in the learning zone, I could use all my language skills, I had the most amazing colleagues, and there was free food. But then I said, this is what makes me happy. I like crossing Lake Togo in one-tree boats and going to TED conferences and making music. And I was very honest. So I said, I can now do what I always did, which is quitting my job, and then I come back and find a new job. Or we find some sort of alternative solution. And my alternative solution looked like 3 days of work per week and the same salary. And my boss said, no fucking way. But another idea came up, and we brainstormed, and the idea was that I create my own company, and then they would send me some customers in the beginning so I get the ball rolling. And that happened. So I turned from this guy to the CEO of Helpando IT, and we have a company that helps other companies to improve their customer service by delivering services related to cloud-based customer service tools. But let's take a step back and see what happened here. When I accepted the Rails job, I didn't really know Rails, but then I learned it by doing. When I was in the cab with James, I wasn't a technical expert, but then I became it by promising stuff and then doing it. We never let a customer down. We just promised things that we weren't really sure we can actually wing, but then we did it by figuring out how to do it. So, if you don't have the answers, in the startup world, nobody has, because it's all so new that nobody really knows what's going on. Jumping in the cold water head first was always my approach, and it always worked great. Anybody remembers this game, Monkey Island, on the old Amiga computer? Yeah. Driving a car through Africa is like this game. You have a bunch of items, like a spade and a fish and some gold thing, and then you have a bunch of verbs, like pick up, use, and you have to combine the verbs with the items so you can solve whatever scenario you're in. And this is exactly how it works in Africa. There's no rules. So you become really good at out-of-the-box thinking and creative problem solving. Now guess in which environment this is in high demand? In the startup environment. You have new situations, there's no pre-made answers for, they need exactly this kind of people. So traveling is not a gap in the CV, it's the best startup boot camp out there. Being employed does not have to suck. This is a picture from the New Zendesk office, but it's not because of the picture, it's because it was the most motivated time in my life, and being employed not always sucks. Most important lesson, next time you have malaria, you need to Google for jobs. All right, so I had my company, it was going great. I was 1 year into having my own company. We made a bunch of money. I met this guy on a car sharing trip from Bucharest to Vamaveke, the Romanian seaside, and he was obsessed with interfaces. That was when I was still at Zendesk, so I thought whenever I have my own company, if I ever have, I have to hire this guy because he's so obsessed. And then I had my own company and I called him and I said, Dominic, do you want to work with me? And he said, yes. You want to come to Berlin? And so he moved into my living room to get up to speed. So we were sitting there in the office and it was all kind of foreseeable. And at that point of my life, I always made decisions based on how crazy the anecdotal value is that comes out of that decision. It's different now, but I couldn't live with the idea that I could see everything that happens. Okay, we can employ more people, we can make a lot of money. It was boring. So I went on Facebook and I have this friend, David. He bought a Land Rover from the Nigerian embassy in Nigeria and then drove through Africa for 5 years straight. And I said, hi David, what should I do with my life? That's exactly what I said. And he said, buy this Land Rover. Like, but it's parked in Buenos Aires. Yeah, maybe you can drive through South America. So I went to the living room and I said, Dominic, should we run our company from a Land Rover Defender while crossing South America? And he said, sure. 6 months later, we bought the Defender and then drive all across South America. This is in the wrong order. Our project was Startup Diaries. It was the mission to run a company from a Land Rover Defender while crossing 20,000 kilometers through South America, making a video documentary about it, and on the same hand, meeting other people who also redefine work, the Che Guevaras of work. So we met those guys, went to Uruguay, Argentina, interviewed people who were interviewed, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, and then we shipped the car back to Hamburg. So let's take a step back and see what happened here. Now, Something I learned there was that work can be different too. You know, this O as self-discovery, you cannot only apply it to life, but also to work. So this was like how we worked sometimes in the desert, using our edge internet connection to log on to some server in the US and use the bandwidth of that server, but only using the command line. It was crazy. Then I just, we're over time, so what I really figured out also was, this was the first time I actually really worked and really traveled at the same time. And these things, those random things, they did not really happen anymore. It's a major difference if you have a completely free mind or if you have to think that tomorrow at 3 p.m. you need a stable Wi-Fi connection for a Skype call with a client. It's really hard for me to switch off. So, if I was 20 now, I would think twice. Would I work in a factory like back in the old days, make some money and then just go travel for a year? Or would I work and travel for a year? Anyway, that's not important. More important, if you ever see a long-haired guy on the street playing a backpacker guitar, you need to go and talk to him. So I was back in Berlin. How do you think that felt? No more getting stuck in the sand, no more making it to courts in a rush, no more interviewing people and all that. Nothing was happening anymore. And I began stressing myself out, like what's the next thing? And people in interviews asked me, what's the next thing you're gonna do? And I had no idea. There was also nothing I really wanted to do. And that felt really bad. Truth to be told, I wanted to cancel this talk. I actually wrote an email to Marcus saying, inventing some sort of excuse, I'm sorry, that I don't want to do, because I had no conclusion for the end. I didn't know what to tell. What is the conclusion of my life experiences? I don't know. But the last month I spent in South America. And I went on a series of hikes with no phone, no agenda, free mind, just a notebook and a pen. And I had a couple of realizations. One was that I can't force it. I wasn't walking around in Berlin saying, where's the next guy with a backpacker guitar? I was turning my life around. I wasn't going mad in Africa saying, where's the next deadly disease I can contract so I can Google for jobs? It just happened. It happened when I was connected to this flow of life and living in the presence. It was like in the waterfall, right? I can't force it. Another thing I realized is I can meet a Nigerian in London and talk with him about how bad the road is which connects Nigeria and Cameroon. I can meet an Argentinian guy somewhere on Ipanema Beach and sing a Mercedes Sosa song with him. I can walk through a park in Berlin and meet someone from Gambia and say Nangadef and do a fist bump and we have this instant connection and I get twice as much as weed. These experiences we make, the cultural knowledge that we acquire, the possibility to discover our creativity and our passions and our limits while we travel, the networks we build, the people we meet, the connections we make. This stuff is so priceless and so invaluable. It's amazing. We might lose an iPhone, but we might never lose those experiences. They will stay with us for the rest of our lives, and that is amazing, truly amazing. Now, the most important thing is that I realized how far I drifted away from the person that I used to be in Africa. And I realized that when I was remembering Africa for this talk, and especially my talks with Monir. Who I really am is someone who feels most alive when being connected to the world as it really is, when feeling its pain and its joy, and when seeing the world from all these facets, the facets of the smuggler, the pirate, the prostitute, Monir, the CEO, the client, not just the CEO, not just the client, not just productivity, hacks and jobs and calendlies and all these things. But in the last 3 years, I followed success and money, and I tried to climb higher on the career ladder. I forgot why I once wanted to become location independent and to become my own boss, to live a free life, to continue experiencing the world, to dance and sing and celebrate, and to see the world from all those facets. So to use my experience to create something which removes those fears and those boundaries that we have in our head. And I became cynical because I was following success and money. And I read all those studies, and I know all the science about that money doesn't make you happy. And you can read it, But you think, yeah, right, if I have a bunch of money, I would be so much happier. But then I really say now, more money than you actually need does not make you more happy. What makes me happy is making a 10-minute short documentary about Monir, putting it in the internet, and then getting an email from someone who lives in South Spain and says, I watched this video and it really changed the perspective I have on the Moroccans that arrive here at the southern coast of Spain. So now I celebrate that I can lose everything, my material possessions, my company. I would still have this feeling that I'll be safe anywhere, and I would still have these skills that I acquired while traveling. If we follow money and we lose money, then we end up with nothing. But if we follow what we love and then we lose money, we still have what we love. So what is next in my life? I have no idea. And it is totally okay. For now, I just do the things that sometimes I wished I would have done more. Be a better friend, be a better son, spend time in nature, leaving my phone at home. I'm happy that I reconnected with my why, which once I found in Africa. And that is experiencing the world by feeling its pain and its joy, and walking past, far away from the off-beaten path, and going to places where not many go, to collect stories from far away and bring them back into the light. To do my part to show that the world is not a dangerous place and that we are all not so different. All this to do my part to dissolve and remove boundaries between continents, countries, and people. And I'm sure that as long as I stay connected to this why, the what's next will arise. Thank you. So, do we still have time for the song? You guys up for a song? But you have to sing along, huh? I hope we can read the lyrics. Oh yeah, that works. I have to read the lyrics too. We just wrote this. Kenny Stenger, my friend, wrote this 2 days ago, and I hope that I can do this. But I have to read the lyrics too. Oh yeah. Maybe after the first chorus you can join in, and maybe we can get some chorus or some reverb effect on the microphone. It would be great. People come in all kinds, separated by fear. When I was a child, I was taught to stay near, to follow in line. Home is safe and secure, but the world is our home, with so much to explore. There's a million ways. When you step out of line to the top of the waterfall, make your own climb. And if you follow your heart, you never know what you'll find. When life gives you waterfalls, make your own climb. When you see through the layers, strangers aren't so strange. Dare to trust by default, melt the layers away. Leave the tour guide behind. You'll both meet again and learn from each other about where you have been. Maybe you can clap. There's a million ways. When you step out of line to the top of the waterfall, make your own climb. If you follow your heart, you never know what you'll find. When life gives you waterfalls, make your own climb. There's a million ways. Don't sing it off. When you step out of line to the top of the waterfall, own climb. If you follow your heart, you never know what you find. Oh, when life gives you waterfalls, make your own climb. When life gives you waterfalls, make your own climb. Thank you.